Ikaw na to pag-usap sa kalibutan, tay.
Kabalo ka magbuhat og puso dong?
Dili.
Maglala ka og lukay, magbuhat ka og kasing-kasing, sudlan og humay, lungagon, tanawa. Murag busog nga dughan. Ug kani makahupay sa kagutom.
Usbo na to ang kalibutan, tay.
Gusto nimo, kakabot ra gyud nimo. Maningkamot lang gyud ta. Kinahanglan, lig-on gyud ka. Komplikado ang kinabuhi. Makat-on ka sa bisan unsang kasinatian. Hugot lang yun ang pagtuo. Sa ngadto-ngadto, ligunon ka sa panahon. Manggihatagon ka. Ania ang kalibutan. Imo kining tanan.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Sir Mike and Miss Erica.
Yes, good afternoon, Miss.
Good
Miss
afternoon,
Maria.
Miss.
So, and good afternoon to our participants for this afternoon. So, welcome in behalf of Miss Jera Gumalal. Welcome to our webinar for today, titled Integration of Social Media in the Teaching of Literature. So, if okay lang po sa inyo, pwede pong pakitype ng kung saan po tayong institution and lugar po nang galing so that we can, para ma-shout out din po namin kayo. So, I see people from, I see our participants are from New Era University, Lipa City, Batangas. We also have from Core Gateway College, Inc., School of Graduate Studies, San Jose City, Nueva Ecija. And hello po from Barongas High School, SDO, Cotabato. We also have from the, of course, UP Cebu. Hello. Leyte Normal University from Tacloban City. And Verge Lucena from Quezon Province. Hello po. Good day po. Madaya Maruhom Ahmad from Caloocan. Hello po, Miss Madaya. Pangasinan State University. Hello. And also Laguna State Polytechnic University, Siniloan, Laguna. Hello po. Mindoro State University. Good afternoon, everyone. So this webinar po is organized by the Teaching and Learning Resource Center of UP Cebu in cooperation with the Technology Transfer and Business Development Office. So before we proceed with the webinar proper, and of course, we have to present to you the reminders first so that we'll have a smooth flow of our webinar for today. So here are some webinar reminders. Let me share my screen first. So, okay. So please take note that this webinar will be recorded. We will be keeping tab of the proceedings for this webinar for documentation purposes. You're free to leave if you feel uncomfortable that this session will be recorded. So you may please mute your microphone during the talk. We want to make sure that the speaker's voice is clear to everyone. So we may opt to remove you if you don't follow this request. So refrain from taking pictures or videos of the talk if you do so. If you do so, you will be held accountable of data privacy violations if the copy you created leaks into other internet outlets. So we wish to keep the identity of our participants private, so as yours as well. So also, please avoid using the annotation tool. Once the annotation tool is activated, you might unconsciously swerve your arrow towards the speaker's presentation and draw unnecessary lines that may block the participant's view on some texts and images on the slides. So if you have questions for our speaker while the talk is ongoing, you may put them in the chat box. And after the talk, you will have a chance to ask your questions. And we wish for you to only use the chat box rather than your voice because of our time constraint. So also don't forget to evaluate your inputs on the webinar will help us improve our next webinars. Please do not forget to, after you have answered the forms, you will be given a proof of participation. So evaluation link will be opened right after the webinar and shall remain open for only 15 minutes. So make sure to evaluate immediately after we give out the link at the chat box. So this webinar is also currently live streaming on our YouTube channel, TLRC UP Cebu. So for those watching through YouTube, you will get your proof of participation by staying until the end of the session. So we will be announcing the instructions of the live chat on YouTube, so please stay tuned. And if you want to get updated on our future webinars and trainings, or simply you want to reach out to us, please follow us and like our official Facebook page, Teaching and Learning Resource Center, University of the Philippines, Cebu. Or you may subscribe to our YouTube channel, TLRC UP Cebu. You may watch our previous webinars there. and also this webinar. Tell website, please also visit our website, tlrc.upcebu.edu.ph. So excuse for the noise. And also please send us an email at lrc.upcebu@up.edu.ph. So thank you very much. And if you and to introduce our speaker for today, of course, Sir Mike, let me give you the spotlight.
Yes, good afternoon everyone for joining. So before I go on to introduce our resource speaker, so shout out po muna kay Mr. George Ulit. So sorry po kung hindi na-mention kanina, wag na pong magtampo, okay? So Mr. George L. Ulit po from University of Antique, Tario Lim Memorial Campus, Tibiao, Antique. So I hope na na-pronounce ko po ng tama yung yung school at yung place po ninyo. Okay, so I'm Michael, so it's my of TLRC, UP Cebu, and it's my honor to introduce our resource speaker this afternoon. So our resource speaker is an instructor at the University of the Philippines Cebu, handling language, literature, and communication subjects. She is a Master of Education in English graduate with distinction, whose research is on digital reading, and has presented her research at local and international conference. She also completed her bachelor's degree in secondary education at Cebu Normal University in 2017 and graduated as cum laude. Her research interests includes creative writing, cultural studies, and language development. Everyone, let us give a virtual applause to Professor Erica May Encabo. Good afternoon, Ms. Erica.
Good afternoon, Sir Michael. Thank you for that introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi.
Good afternoon, Miss.
Hi, Ms. Je. I can see that we have a variety of audience today, no? So, matitest talaga yung Tagalog natin this afternoon. Okay, can I share my screen now?
Yes, po.
Okay, hello, good afternoon once again, and welcome to today's topic, which will revolve around integration of social media in the teaching of literature. But before that, I have here a link. I placed that one in the chat box, and I would like to request everyone to take the short survey that you are required to answer your most used social media applications. You can list up until 3. So again, we will be using that one later. So list down your most used social media application. Again, I'll be pasting the link in the chat box. So I hope you will be guided. Okay, so going forward, when confronted with the word literature, it's definitely anything under the sun from A to Z. And I guess literature teachers can relate. We will just be given a concept. Okay, give me your response, which starts with letter Y. Automatically, literature teachers will always have something to say about that concept. And as literature teachers, we always have this constant pressure in us to be 10 books ahead of our students. And not only that, we must be aware of the literatures of the past, present, and the future. What do I mean by getting a good grasp of the literatures of the past? Take note that this classics, it definitely gave us a literary pattern that shaped the societal landscape of the present. And when you talk about the present food, we must also be acquainted with whatever is happening around us, because it would be a shame if our students know the ins and outs of the current period, and our students are very keen with details as well. Sometimes when we give them a literary material, they give us a concept, a trending concept. And how will we know if that's the right connection, that's the right integration, if we don't know anything about that concept? So pressure, we are really pressured. May pressure tayo to keep up with the trends of social media, of politics, governance, of almost everything, because we have digital learners right now who are at some point very literate, very techno savvy. So we might as well be on trend. So that's our challenge, to be on trend. And of course, we also need to get to know or to speculate about the literatures of the future. In fact, yesterday, if you were aware, yesterday Facebook just launched something about metaverse. And it's, getting acquainting us with, we can have conferences, we can have discussions wherein we are in a remote context, but we don't feel like it. So if you can see, that's something that we just imagined before. If you read science fiction books way back 1970s, you can find that there's just an imaginary tablet being written, and right now we are having tablets. We also have people traveling to space. Before, that was just like a product of speculation, and right now it is in the present. So again, we also need to speculate. And in the senior high school context, or in the high school context, we have subjects like 21st century literature from the Philippines and the world, creative writing, creative nonfiction. And when we do our analysis, students are not merely concerned on answering who are the characters of the story, who are the authors, when this story took place, and such, when is the date of publication. They're not really so interested with that, although that's still essential. What they are more concerned of is, how does this text relate to me? How could I establish the three connections? Text to text, text to self, text to world. And when you talk about social media integration, we are hitting those three connections. More importantly, the text to world concept, because in the postmodern period, we are now living in an intertextual world, and we need to embrace that. We are now in the intertextual world. Words, concepts, they are connected with each other. So let's try to get a short retrospective view on social media timeline, although this is just very short. So you have there, first social media site emerged in the year 1997, although it started mga early 1990s. So we have 6degrees.com. It's like a blog site where you can just, share your thoughts, you open it for a discussion. And right after which, we have now platforms such as LiveJournal and Blogger. Then here came the wikis. And right after the wikis, we have microblogs, social network sites, photo sharing services, video sharing services, social bookmarkings, and even social gaming. And of course, we can just again speculate to the infinite possibilities that social media has to offer. And usually, if we say social media, it's usually frowned upon by teachers. Like, social media is always a hassle. Palagi itong disturbo sa focus ng ating mga learners. But then, if we always stick to that perspective, we might be missing out on millions of opportunities. So I am encouraging everyone to use social media as your ally. It's granted that we have like a little disadvantages of social media, but then we must teach and model it to our students. How could we properly use that to our advantage? How could we properly use that in education? So stuff like that. So going forward is, I would like to share the results of our shortfall a while ago. For a while.
Miss Erica, ano ang pinaka-used na social media platform?
Yes, miss, I'll be presenting it, but I have my predictions na kung ano yung most used.
How about you? Yung sa'yo lang.
I use right now, miss, like just last year I've been so active on Facebook because students are, reaching out to you through Facebook. Before I used to be an Instagram pal, so I just stick to Instagram and sometimes go to Twitter. But right now, I mostly use Facebook. How about you, Miss Je?
I use Instagram a lot. I mean, Instagram is a safe space for me. No
Yes,
one-
true.
No one knows me a lot there. Okay, here it is.
So if you can check, so those words with the large fonts, those are the words na which is repeatedly answered by our audience here. So we have Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Messenger, Chatterbait. That's something new, Miss Jen. No, I haven't heard of Chatterbait, but we also have YouTube. We also have Facebook Messenger, Google, TikTok. We have what else? Discord, Gmail. So we have here a variety of social media applications, and actually it made me happy to see it. We know nga, teachers right now are actually using these. They are familiar with these applications. So what is lacking na lang is how to properly integrate it in our literature class. So I'm happy about the results of our shortfall. So actually, this is also a good way to, start your class if you want to, get a pulse of your students. What do you want to discuss? What is the first word that comes into your mind after reading the literary text? So you can use this presentation so you can get their feelings, you can get the vibrations coming from the audience. So again, so moving forward, let me share this again. Okay. Are you now seeing my slide? Can you?
Yes,
confirm?
miss.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. Okay, so we've been talking about social media for quite a time now. Now let's check on some perspectives, like authors who really placed a perspective on how should social media be seen. So according to Manka 2016, social media is a powerful driver of change, which is, I think everyone would agree, because it somehow changed the way we behave. And borrowing Cecilia Brainerd's description on plot, I think that social media puts users in a metaphor that we are like characters in conflict in action. Basic elements of openness, interactivity, and sociability are also present in social media context. And these things provide accessibility for people to get a slice of a cake, to experience and to listen to how others do it, to converse, or to simply appreciate everything. Moreover, according to Tess, she also made a very powerful position about social media. This is challenging because the fact that it is constantly in a state of change, and just like people, just like everything around us, we change. If you check your social media applications, all of a sudden you'll be having updates, and these are done to satisfy the consumers to develop efficiency in delivering customer care, or even let us experience things that would be to our own convenience. According to Brown as well, social media has these features that lets us create, share, comment on something, or to discuss on something. Mainly, the goal of social media, DI, is to keep the ball rolling, to keep the conversation going. They are also depicted as dynamic, interactive, democratic, people-centric, volatile, social, and adaptive. And it tells us that consumers as well, or like us, we must also be adaptive to these changes. Like if we are so pessimistic about almost everything in social media, of course, if that's your pananaw, you will just really stay there. But if you are open to the limitless opportunities that it could bring to you, to your advantage, then might as well grab the chance and put it in your classroom because your students are talking about it. And so let's take a look at statistics. Here is a data from Statista. So one of the reliable data gatherers here in the Philippines. So they published a global survey, and this is in the context of the Philippines rather. So we have your number of social media users from 2017 to 2020. So if you can observe, year 2017, we are just having 65 million users, social media users. But right now, the year 2021, we are now at 81.53 million. And it is projected that in the year 2026, we are now at 91.3 million. And if you check the demographics of this research, most of the users belong from itong mga Generation Y, Generation X, Generation Z. And our students are part of those. So see, you can see na they are really talking and they're really using it. So let's use that to our advantage. Moreover, here are the leading mobile apps used by internet users in the Philippines. First is the social networking apps, the one you mentioned a while ago: Facebook, Messenger, Instagram, TikTok. So those are part of social networking apps. And here comes the leading social media platforms among internet users in the Philippines in the year 2021. So first pala is on YouTube. So we have YouTube, followed by Facebook, then Facebook Messenger, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Pinterest, Viber, and so on. So what does it imply? It means that people are no longer required, our students no longer, we no longer have to orient our students on what Facebook is, what Messenger is, what Instagram is, because they are already using it. Alam na nila kung paano ito gamitin. We just have to inform them on how to properly make use of these social media applications to education. So let's not restrict them to using it. Huwag natin silang sabihan na, oh, do not use it because that will just be a hindrance sa pag-aaral mo. You tell them, okay, you can use this, but you use it this way. So something like that. And let's take a look at some studies about social media in teaching literature. So we have here, according to Frank 2011, teachers must adjust their pedagogy based on students' diverse needs. So this is the thing that you need to be very careful of when you would want to integrate social media in your teaching, especially in literature, because you need to know their backgrounds. For example, you are teaching 21st century literatures from the Philippines and the world, but then the context of it is in Cebu, but then you are introducing probably a material that they are not really aware of because it's not contextualized enough to their needs. So you need to, again, consider your students' background, their students' needs, and of course, you need to adapt practices to local context and coordinate with each other as they do so. Moreover, much of the studies that you can find for integration of social media in the teaching context is focused on higher education context. Why? Because students in elementary period, we cannot really expect so much from them na very tech-savvy na sila because we still need to really guide them. But when we have high school learners, senior high school learners, and even college learners, they are already using it to interact, to communicate, to converse. So there's no need for much deeper scaffolding on those areas. Then we have here some perspectives of teachers in the use of social media in the teaching of literature. So they have of course, they always have something to say about it. For example, access to the internet. There are still schools with little to no access to electricity, so very remote, in a remote context. And we also have a lack of technical support. There are still teachers who are grappling with the use, like how to use this, how to use that. I don't know if nakaka-relate kayo diyan na usually our students, they know better than how to, present a slide, how to create very creative presentations, how can we post this one, how could we limit our audience, how could we check our privacy settings. They know things such as those. So sometimes these things, they matter to the implementation of social media and education, because if you don't know the ins and outs of these technical factors, it could really affect. And we also have organizational aspects like school culture. I can also relate to this one because before I was working in an institution and it's really not allowed to use cell phones in classroom, whether it's educational or not. It's really limited, restricted. So you're not allowed, teachers are even not allowed to, bring cell phones in class. And when you announce, you're just only allowed to do academic instructions, conversations inside the classroom. If outside the classroom na, wala nang discussions. So you'll have to live your own separate lives. So and it's difficult to integrate those because we don't have the access to students, because again, that's restricted because we have different school cultures. We also have individual teacher characteristics, such as, us, our willingness to use technology in class. Sometimes we can say, ayoko niyan kasi komplikado, stick na lang ako so kung ano yung na-learn ko before. So you just stick to the traditions, and sometimes it bores the students. So we need to spice them up. We need to add little spices to our discussion, and social media could be one of those. And of course, we have here the 21st century literature teacher mantra. So we have what it means to be a teacher is shifting alongside the technological landscape. So we go with trends. If you check economics, politics, even education, trends are very important because they maintain and they sustain our learners' interest, especially if literature, let's admit, not all students read. If you tell them, okay, you read this story, they will really frown. Miss, reading assignment na naman. I still have to read many things. So how to keep them going? Let's try to, give them a video perhaps, or let's check on what's on trend. What are they talking about in Twitter? What's on top of Twitter? How can we integrate those hashtags in our discussion? So we can use those. And of course, teachers have also challenges in this setting because we have privacy settings, authority limiting their availability. Like right now, in the remote learning context, do you still limit your chat hours to 8 to 5 p.m.? Di ba hindi na? Usually even up until 11 or 12 noon, we are still answering questions. We are still answering queries. So we also have here availability. We also have privacy because sometimes they want to, like before, I really don't accept students in my Facebook account. I have that principle before because I always need to be like private with my account. But right now, I'm slowly opening the idea of like creating another account for work wherein I could communicate with my students and stuff like that. Because we are also afraid though that our old pictures will be scattered over the internet. So that's just one of the fears. So we have here 8 stages of incorporation, like 8 stages on how to properly incorporate social media. So first we have defining our goals. So you check your CGs, you check your subject. At the end of the course, you are required to do this and do that. In fact, in 21st century literature, one of its final requirement is to use or to adapt a text using, maybe another medium. So you can use social media in that context. So you define your goals, you know what you want, and then you study about it, you find knowledge, you do your research in order for you to plot the right strategy, to plot the right media to integrate in your class. And of course, you have to also adapt knowledge, to not just stick to the classics. Well, it's good to get a grasp or a good knowledge of the classics. It's not just enough to stay there. You explore. We are explore. We are like Doras. Kita nga, tayong mga creative writing teachers, we really explore things. We even ask our students, diba? I don't know if you can relate. We are like Doras. We ask them, do you know in online class setting, do you know this? And then they don't answer. So at the end, you just provide the answer yourself, just like Dora. So we explore, we become creative with our presentations. And of course, at the end part, we evaluate as well. What if our integration is not efficient? It has many disadvantages over advantages. So of course, you really need to start again. You define your goals again, you find knowledge, and so on. So it's like a cyclical method, it's a cyclical process. And why are we using social media? So we are having the benefits now, and I'm also giving you like some tips on how you can use social media in the instruction. So first, we need to increase students' motivation and involvement in class. For example, before we are like when I was in high school or even college, we are having like 10 papers, all are essays. But right now you can integrate photo essays. And in fact, over the internet, you can find a lot of photo essays shared by students, some of which Gali are not really required by teachers. Now, you're not required to share it, but they're sharing it anyway because they want to keep the conversation going. And that's very beautiful. So photo essays are a form of visual storytelling, which could either be thematic or narrative in nature. So instead of letting your students write 1,000 words essay, but again, it's always your take because you know your CGs, you know your competencies well. So it's up to you on how you can do creative ways to tweak it a little or integrate some mediums for it to be interesting in class. For example, you have here an essay. Photo essays really don't necessarily have to have captions, but others are using photos, supplementing their essays with photos. So, but in standard photo essays, they really don't need to have like long captions or another essay to supplement the photo, but it's up to the student. Then we have here another one. And for when you talk about thematic photo essays, for example, check here, What the World Eats by Peter Menzel. There are just like, people standing near their pantry and showing us what they eat. So you can find it here, and then no words, just pictures, but we know that behind those pictures we can discuss something about their culture, their struggles, their economic backgrounds, and we could relate that even to our own context. And we have here a narrative photo essay. This is interesting because this was a product of my student before, and don't worry, I asked his permission to share this in class. It's entitled A Medical Mission. So we start here with the hooking picture, the hook. So we have here service given by one person to another, signified by the hand. And then you have there the establishing shot where you present the setting. And then you can find there the characters. So we have little boys, little kids. So you might have as well have an idea, ito pala yung service kasi we're having little kids. And then they're lining up. And here comes the conflict or the climax part. We have the tuli. Ano pa yung tuli sa Tagalog? For the Filipino. Miss Check, can you help me?
I think the same lang.
It's the same lang pala. Okay, so we have here the version of Tuli, and then we have there the tools and whatsoever, and then here comes the the main event, and then the clincher, the end part, the end picture. So you can see their kids who are like, shouting perhaps or crying in silence because of the pain that they experienced. But that's his narrative photo essay. And then when he shared it to class, it's really amusing and it's really a different take. They could create stories out of simple mundane events that they see online. And then once they share it to the media, to the internet, of course, you need to also remind them of the privacy settings. Like you tell them before they take pictures, they must ask permission, they must ask consent, because our kids right now, they're fond of just click, 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 and then post, because we use Instagram, we use internet, use social media in class. Again, once you share photos, you need to ask consent. So you please remind your students about that. And of course, we can also have short word stories. And where can we find these? We can find these in Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, Tumblr. So we can find many short word stories, like for example, 6-word story, 10-word story, 3-word story. And how can we integrate this in class? Because sometimes, our kids in their profile pictures, they use these types of short word stories to synthesize the picture, to give us an idea about the picture. So we can apply this one when we want to elicit an immediate response from a material, like we need to have a short character sketch by using a short word story. Or when you try to, in fact, before, when we did our theater arts class, in the promotion of, the theater play, we need to have 7-word story to sketch out the character in our promotions. So it's a quite good use that people will really know, they will be interested about the medium, the material. So those were examples of pages that our students usually follow. And here comes another one. We have BookTok. So TikTok as a social media platform really, became famous during the pandemic period. Everyone's making TikTok because summer that you're bored in the house and you want to, make use out of your time. Okay, you create a TikTok, a 15-second video. And what is amazing with TikTok, although we can always have a fair share of disadvantages, but let's just take a look at how we can use that to the context that we are discussing right now. So if you search #BookTok, you have 25.1 billion views, total views. So students or content creators are creating their videos showing their book recommendations. And in fact, when I asked my class in creative writing class, where did you get give me book recommendations, where did you hear from those? Most of them told me it's from Twitter and TikTok, miss. And in fact, it's nice. It made me buy a new book. It made me borrow a book. So that's a good that's a good thing. And we also have book recommendations. The total views of that is 1.7 billion. So there are actually many videos with this, and this is applicable to creating videos in lieu of written assignments and to making videos part of the presentation. But I just have I had a research before in digital reading, and my respondents told me na they don't like if they are graded. Like some teachers would have this idea na you have to grade the number of likes. Like you have 1,000 likes and this post has 10 likes only. So this one has a higher grade rather than the 10 likes. So that's actually wrong. We encourage them to share it, but we don't grade the material according to the number of likes, because it would probably defeat our purpose. We want to use social media to reinforce education. The thing there is, what if I am not a popular kid? I'm not a popular person. And I am shy to, message my relatives to share my video and whatsoever. So the fact that they are sharing that online, that's actually, for me, that's enough, because they're actually doing their part to keep the conversation going. So if it hit the trend, then good. But if it did not, that's still good. So let's not put so much pressure to our kids to be really someone in social media. You really need to be famous. So let's, as much as possible, let's not have that. And in fact, so these are some samples of like videos in TikTok. And second, to fulfill ways of collaborative and participative learning. And that's our goal, especially in the pandemic context. I don't know if you can relate, but it's different because when it's face to face, we can really call out kids to answer. But right now, when you are in an online context, sometimes it really takes like too much airtime for them to open their mics, for them to open their cameras. So it's just like you are talking to yourself most of the time. So how can we properly use that? We could introduce to them Twitter forums, or we can recreate Twitter forums in our class, because kids, they really love to have a share of like, let me tweet. So in my class, I really don't tell them now we post it in Twitter, but I encourage to have like a short Twitter forum. So can you tweet something about today's material? And they're actually using Google Meet like Twitter. They're chatting about hashtag this, hashtag that. So we need to keep them talking. So let's let them participate in our class. So we have Twitter forums. For example, if you do hashtag how to Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, you can find a lot of literary discussions about this, like how they try to contextualize this specific material to the happenings of the current society, like protest, like oppression, struggles. So that's a good take nga. We are trying to to establish text to world connections from, take note, How to Kill a Mockingbird, that was published years ago, but we keep it timeless because that's still relevant to society. We find scenarios that we can connect to the happenings, like news articles. For example, my student before told me, Miss, I could really, one event that I have read in Facebook that I think is very connected to How to Kill a Mockingbird was when a cop shot like a mother and a son. And I told him, can you give me the context of that? And they are actually making a good connection. There's injustice, there's oppression, there's class struggle, it's proletariat versus the bourgeoisie. So that's a good take. And moreover, we also have BookTube in YouTube channel. So before Book Talk, we have BookTube in YouTube channel wherein content creators are making videos of worthy books to read, or you tell them, they will tell us why we should not be reading this book as well. So importantly, in my literature class, you also need to know the preferences of your kids. Because the start of my class, I really asked them, what are the books that you have read? Because during the integration of the concepts that I'll be teaching, I'll try my best to incorporate the ideas from these books para mas relatable on their end. Because what if I'll be talking about Shakespeare and they're talking about Langleaf? So probably hindi na nila relate. But I'm not telling that we should not be discussing Shakespeare anymore. We should still be discussing Shakespeare, but we need to give a little modern counterpart so that they could still get, ito pala yung point ni Miss, ito pala ang point ng concept. And these are some examples of content creators making book recommendations. Next is we need to capitalize on students' familiarity with these tools. So for example, this is one promising intervention. We have Twitteritcher. My students were like, Miss, does Twitteritcher exist? I didn't know that I'm actually making it. So Twitteritcher is the use of Twitter as a medium for literature such as poems and stories. Before, in Twitteritcher, you have there the concept as your main thing, and then under the threads are the continuation of your stories. And in fact, people are getting giddy about Twitter because according to my student, I asked them, why do you use Twitter so much? And then they said, Miss, because everything is in Twitter. You need facts, you have Twitter. You need to have false information, you have Twitter. So it has a mix of everything, Miss. And that statement made me, oh, okay, these kids really know how to filter what's factual and what's not. That's a good thing. When they said everything is Twitter, parang at some point, akabado ako kasi when they said everything is in Twitter, they might generalize na everything is true in Twitter. But when they said that you have a fair share of facts and false information, that made me a little relieved na students pala are still being critical in terms of, stratifying what's good information and what's bad. So some examples of like Twitteritures, some experiences of students they have there. It's good because this made us create a combination of classical and modern language. And during my literature class, one student again told me, Miss, should literature just be restricted to the use of English language? And I really told them, no, because that's really colonial if we treat it that way. Take note, we talk about literatures of the Philippines and the world. So when we try to use literary text in the Philippines, you can use and you can express in any language that you're comfortable of. So do not just restrict them to using English all the time in producing a product. I advise to also let them use probably vernacular language because we also need to boost our balak in Cebu, right? In Cebuano poems, we call it balak, or in your specific areas to flourish also vernacular literature. Another one is its advantages because they had a free choice of what they wanted to write in Twiterature. And they also need to add their own personal knowledge of social media to the story. So you see, sometimes our kids, they don't like challenges, but subconsciously they are telling us that they want a challenge. So when they tell them to recreate something, they will frown at first, but at the end part, if they find it really beneficial, in the FGD part, they will tell you, Miss, it's really nice. I really learned something about it, and I hope that we still have this in the next session. In fact, I don't know if you're familiar with A Man Falls to His Death by Cirilio Bautista. I had that in my literature class, and I never really had a formalistic kind of analysis when I offer them literary work. So I just told them, okay, you use any references available. You tell me what happened to the man. Did he commit suicide or was he murdered in the case? And they presented it via Netflix. They presented it through Instagram stories. And I was like, oh, these kids are really something. Sometimes they really just surprise us. So it's a little must to us that we also need to keep up with something. Hey, self, do you know these things? Do you know these concepts? Galaw-galaw naman yan, so that you can also keep up with what the students are talking about. And another thing is we have Insta poetry. So there are many studies about the use of Instagram as an intervention to increase motivations in writing. So in fact, we are working with the research of the use of Instagram for enhancing the creative writing skills of our students. But there's a funny story about it because we were having the coaching session, and then some of the teachers told me, Miss, I would really want to find ways to insert social media in my class, and I want to use Instagram. And I told the teachers, okay, so what do you know about Instagram? And they said, we know nothing about Instagram, Miss. So that's one thing we really need to be concerned about. So it's a nice take that they have this initiative to integrate social media, but it's not enough. You just want it. You have to learn the medium side. You have to learn about Instagram so that you'll know how you could implement that in your classroom. So here they are trying to, our kids right now, they like to use Canva in editing presentations, they post it on Instagram, they use captions, and the captions must be like a short story or a flash fiction, a drabble, a 6-word story, a microfiction, sudden fiction. You're using that one, and it's actually yielding out better results because they said that they're interested because people will be looking at their posts, so they're pressured to enhance the writing skills. And in terms of plagiarism, they really avoid it because if it's paper and pencil daw, usually they think of, ay, hindi naman to babasahin ni teacher at hindi naman alam ni teacher kung saan ko to kinuha. So I'll just pass it because anyways, it's just in the paper. But if it's online or if it's posted online, we can always track if you are copying this from someone else because other people are watching. So they're more conscious about what they're writing, and they are more motivated to write better because it's not just the teacher reading the work. There are classmates of them. And what else? So these are samples of Insta poetries. And if you check your students' timelines, if you are friends with them, they are sharing Insta poets work. So they're sharing and they're trying to give the caption relate much. So you see, they can relate to this one. So okay, let's use that one in our class. If you can relate this one, so you can open like okay, let's have an Insta session in our Google Meet today. So can anyone share about an Insta poetry that you think is very much applicable to this literary material? And so on, and can you give a response to that one? Can you comment on? So you also ask them, not just tell them, nah, you comment, you do this, you do that. You also need to be liquid with your instruction so that they would also feel like they have a fair share of like a contribution to the very thing that you are establishing in class. And of course, we do social media integration to improve the quality of our teaching. What I like about Google Classrooms is when you give out a question, students will be answering, and there's an option there that students can see the answers of others and they could comment in. When I was having a discussion about bonsai by Ed Tiempo, I asked a question like, what is your bonsai moment? And then students were sharing that this is my bonsai moment, and their classmates are commenting like, yeah, I also experienced that and this. In fact, I saw this, I saw that. And it's actually nice that even if they're not in the usual classroom setup, they're still talking about things, and they're talking about connections from the text that was introduced just a while ago. So that's just one. And we also need to experiment with new tools. For example, this one, the one I presented a while ago, that's a Mentimeter. So in the Mentimeter, you can have this one. You can have a multiple choice, open-ended questions, scales, ranking, question and answer. You can have there a paragraph, picture, quotes. You can use that in your class, probably to sometimes when I have my 7 a.m. class, 7:30 a.m. class, literature class, they're really sleepy. You can see that the voices are still hoarse. So I usually don't just tell them, okay, let's go with the material. I start with something interesting, like opening this to the class, like how many of you, tell me honestly, how many of you are familiar, or can you give out a word to integrate what you just have read? So from the words, I will start my discussion in there. So hindi na siya yung structured. The characters is, the theme is. So from the words, I use all the words to start my discussion. So if I say there the concept of, for example, intertextuality, or for example, pastiche. So I'll use, okay, this story is actually also a pastiche because it's different from a parody because of this and that. So from there, I can see that students are also researching about their work because they know that the next day I will really ask them like a word or probably a short sketch out of the character. And then they are telling, in fact, one student privately messaged me and told me, Miss, I love when we do short word stories because that improved me when I do my captions online. So it's like a little thing, but at some point I was making, I use social media to create social impact to our students, and that's also a goal that I would want to share to you. You use social media for social impact, and let's make it worthy, let's make it good, because they always say that youth is the future of our nation. So let's help them to be the future of it, to be the good example, to be build a better future for everyone. And Flipgrid. I don't know if you're familiar with Flipgrid as well, but you can use that let students give out a short response of the material that they've seen. Or for example, you want to develop, in my class, in creative writing class, we are having dialogue. So I asked them to create a dialogue and act it out so everyone can see. So when I check on Flipgrid, I can just find there one topic, and then when you click that topic, all submissions are there, all video submissions are there, and students can also check on their classmates' work. And in fact, they said, Miss, nape-pressure ako kasi yung unang nag-pass ang galing. So I need to be magaling as well. So you see that at some point it creates like a healthy competition for everyone. And this is just like a sample of that. So of the surface of Flipgrid. And of course, to share content material with people easily. So we have Wattpad literary works. Do you know that our students right now, really, when I asked them about authors, it was my first year of teaching, and they told me, Miss, my favorite author is Jo Knox. And for a while, I was really just staring at her, and I told her, who's Jo Knox? And then she said, Miss, it's a Wattpad writer. You're not reading it. Oh my God, Miss, you should check that out. And then I realized, yeah, at some point I feel like I'm old, even though it's still my first year of teaching, because I don't know Jo Knox. I don't know anything about Wattpad. So kids are actually reading Wattpad as well. I encourage them to, okay, you can read Wattpad, but again, you also read, I also have my book recommendations here, like you read Haruki Murakami, you read E.E. Cummings, you read, who else? You read Rick Riordan, if you want to learn about like fantasy, sci-fi, you do your quick scan of soft sci-fi, science fantasy, you discover about techniques and whatsoever. So in Wattpad, they're also sharing a piece of them in there. So they are leaving comments, and sometimes Wattpad encourages them to write stories as well. So we can use also Wattpad in our discussion, in our literary discussion. And to give you a short advice as well, you always need to remind yourself that you as a literature teacher is innovative, you are adaptive, and you are creative. You are innovative because you always find ways to integrate trends to your class. You're adaptive because with whatever situation that you are in right now, you still find ways to keep the ball rolling. And you are creative because you find ways to maintain interest and motivation in class. And with that, we have a very beautiful word in Cebuano language. We call it padayon. Padayon, because that's, we call it, amidst everything, we need to really establish our grit, our commitment to do something, and that's why we still continue. So padayon magtutudlo, or padayon teachers. And I think that's just it for this short talk, and I hope that you learned something from this talk. And if you have questions, yeah, feel free to ask Miss Je.
It's so fun to hear you talking right now, Miss Erica. Because I haven't seen you like in a class, in a real class. But now I do know why. I do know why some of our students would really say, I really like Miss Erica.
Thank you,
And
Je.
your current square or your current box is actually Instagrammable, right? Okay, so I can really relate on what you're saying, that a lot of our students are doing online literary works or doing short works that are actually considered to be literary in form. And a lot of them are actually reading Wattpad.
Yes, miss. And in fact, they don't like when we say when we say do not read Wattpad, they don't like it because they feel like we're so authoritative in class.
Yes.
And I just tell them that do not just stick to a certain genre, you also explore to others. But I'm not telling you that you don't read Wattpad. It's good that you are reading. The fact that they are reading, that's already good, miss, because kids right now, they don't read that much.
And the thing here is that literature is literature. Grammar is
Yes.
grammar. So
Yes.
they will definitely learn grammar somewhere else, but they would learn to love literature somewhere else as well. So it's not really a strict combination of technicalities and interest, because literature allows students to merge with cultures, to develop their own cultures, and of course to develop their own way of thinking. It's just like looking art as well. Why do we need to observe art? Why do we need to read books? The reason being is we want to immerse in different kinds of observation and different kinds of cultures as well as thinking. And that creates a wider if the students can do introspection, it can create a wider meaning to what they are seeing. So that's the main idea why literature should also be incorporated in almost all school programs.
Yes, miss. And even in songs, so when they can relate much in songs when if you discuss figurative language to them, and instead of using the old examples that are in books, you can use song lyrics, and they will know, okay, that lyric that I would catch a grenade for you. That's an example of a hyperbole.
Yes.
So they are more engaged because they know songs. They know those songs.
Yes. And I was also, I would like to agree to you that aside from the idea that Facebook is there, some of our students who are very artistic and creative would use Instagram, because Instagram is a good space for creative artists, and they can present their work in a cleaner manner, in a way that they can put captions as well as images at the same time. So it's really, really good for creative students as well. Of course, we cannot take away the fact that there are some hindrances to social media learning, or learning through social media, given that there will be privacy issues, there will be ethical issues sometimes, given these are students who are actually using social media and are constantly having conversations with people of different ages and different cultures. And these are students who are under 18 years old. But I guess the thing here is that if you are the literature teacher, or you are the teacher who will be using social media, you have to create some sort of consensus with the students on how they can also protect themselves while learning in social media.
Yes, that's true, Ms. Dre. You really need to establish what those things before you try to integrate that one. You need to also get their consensus about things. Because what if some of them are not really comfortable about it? So
Yes,
that could also hinder learning.
exactly. Did you know, Miss Erica, that I have a student before who is actually earning so much right now in Wattpad?
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah, they are writers. So it's actually really interesting. Their passion for writing, they put it in Wattpad, and then they become good at it. They really invested in it, and now that's what they are doing, like wholeheartedly, and earning from it. So those can also be career options, no? Which is
Yes.
based on the idea of literature. Okay, so
And in fact, Miss J, sorry, Miss J, in fact, Miss J, one student also shared that they want to be in this trend because they have like new professions in mind, like they want to be content creators because they want to they say na, they want to be content creators because they want to pursue their passion at the same time they want to earn money, so they're like hitting two birds in one stone. So that's good to hear nga this digital period, students are also being open to new opportunities for them to explore.
yes. Okay. We have some questions Okay na po ba tayo to answer some questions?
Yes,
Okay,
miss.
we have a question here. Hello, I'm glad to hear an enthusiastic talk from you, a really passionate teacher. I just would like to ask, I know it's effective to use at our students, but I believe that we should consider the digital divide of our students. What about this challenge? How can we implement social media and literature if there's a digital divide, and any alternative tweaks can do?
Yeah, in digital literacy, it cannot be denied that there's always this digital divide, and especially this usually happens like the teacher and student, because the teacher belongs to Gen X, for example, or the boomer session, and then we have Generation Z learners, and that is why I always advise teachers that even though we are in Gen X, Gen Y, it doesn't mean that we need to stay with our labels, with our names. We must keep updated. That's why we do seminars. We keep ourselves equipped with knowledge that we find online. What are the trends, so that we could also keep up with the students, because it may be true, you know, that sometimes students by are emphatic pod, they tend to adjust pod to their teachers. So might as well we also do the same for them. After all, that's the one of the pursuit of being a teacher, right? We need to keep ourselves updated, because every year we have new set of kids, younger version of kids. So uh, every year lalayo at lalayo talaga yung digital divide. So to make it to be near, we need to meet halfway. So you need to keep yourself be informed about the trends, so that the digital divide problem would probably be mitigated.
Okay, so aside from that, I would like, because I think there's also this question. I think what our participant would also like to look at is actually the presence of interconnectivity and the presence or the access not to gadgets and internet connectivity. When you say digital divide, you are actually looking into access, and you are actually also looking into use. Now, the technological difference between students, teachers, and between students and students, in a way, actually, sometimes this allows students to engage in online learning, no? Or in learning using technological materials and online materials. But according to some studies, it's not about having gadgets or not. It's actually how the teachers would use the available access of the students. Say, for example, a lot of students use Facebook Messenger because it's free, and their gadgets can actually support Facebook Messenger. So in a way, if you wanted to use these kinds of platforms to be able to teach and to be able to use as a form of engagement, no, for the students, then you have to know, no, you have to know the limitations and access of your students first before engaging in such. For example, before I was able to actually use a Facebook Messenger to deliver some lessons to students, and I technically use the chat box in the group box of Facebook Messenger to give lecture slides, and it is possible because the students can actually view all of these messages even without having to use data or to, have loads, because it's free. Facebook Messenger is actually free. Sending message to Facebook Messenger is free. So that's still one of the things that you have to remember. Again, being a teacher, first you have to diagnose what are the state of your students and what are their situations. And Miss Erica, I think, was saying here that these are alternative options, and these are good options that we can move forward to later in the near future, because everything progresses. Not all the time it will just stay there. The technological dividends before might have been very bad, or might have been very, the state is very bad. But right now we are closing the divide, slowly closing the divide. Before, cell phones are very expensive, but right now cell phones can easily be accessed. And there are even cell phones that are very inexpensive. No? So cell phones before were just things of the rich, but right now, most of the people, if not all, can actually have cell phones. So that's some of the things that you have to consider as well. Okay, so let's continue. Another question, Miss. What would suggest for a teacher like us to do if you found out that the student enrolled is not doing the school requirements, but rather is the girlfriend or boyfriend or friends? No, most of these accounts are shared. Some of their accounts were actually shared. So, do you have any cases like that, Miss Erica?
So far, I haven't encountered that situation wherein I found out that the student was actually having someone to do the work for him or her, because we need to admit that there's really some things that are out of our control as teachers. Like right now, we cannot have a good grasp of our students, how to monitor their pacing, especially that we are in the remote context, and we are stretching out. If you can observe, we are really stretching out our patience, we are really stretching out our deadlines to just meet them. And if in cases like this you found out that a student was not actually doing the requirement, I think the best thing is to stick on your school protocols. What is needed to be done in order to address that specific problem, because we all have different cultures, and telling you our culture might not be relevant to yours, it might not be relative to yours. So I think it's better if we stick to protocols set by our academic institutions on how to properly address problems like this.
Yes, that's one. And also to cultivate honesty. Actually, it starts inside the classroom. If you cultivate
Yes.
honesty and you trust your students about what they are doing, they would deliver the same trust to you as well. So, if you cultivate the culture of honesty, this is how we do it. We do a lot of checking, right? We do a lot like plagiarism checks. We do a lot. But if you continue to do that without telling the students why you are actually doing that, without cultivating in the students the idea that they should be honest, they should be trustworthy individuals, because they will be they will be taking that habit will be
Mm-mm.
taken up until they graduate, up until they becomes real, no, productive citizens of the country. So it starts where they are. So it starts in the classroom. It starts about how you will cultivate that. And I think a lot of us forget about that, because we think that we should limit a lot of our students' capabilities because we are afraid that they are dishonest. But then again, we have to cultivate honesty at the very beginning. Okay, so there's, as an educator of literature during pandemic, what are the struggles that you face in teaching, and how did you manage to overcome these hurdles, Miss Erica?
Okay, so there are actually many challenges, but let's stick to as an educator or as a teacher in literature subject. One struggle that I really find it hard is like getting my students read the specific material, because usually at the start of the class I already gave them a list of literary materials that we will be talking. So why am I giving them that list? So that they will have the luxury of the time to scan that one, because I always tell them, do not come to my class unprepared, do not come to class without reading the necessary materials that you have to, because it's in there. In first meeting, this is our focus, literary material focus. And I usually really ask them, did you read? And then usually there are little there are little percentages na students will really say that they haven't, because they are having problems with the internet, because we are doing online learning right now, although we also have modules for asynchronous tasks. But usually the problems are they don't have internet connection, they their gadgets broke down, so they cannot scan the material. And what I usually give them suggestions is, if you want, I could, if learning is really difficult because you have a gadget dilemma, then you can come to the school and I could give you printed modules if you really want, because we really need to help them, because sometimes, no, our kids, they did not choose their situation, and we really need to
Exactly.
be understanding about it. So as much as possible, we help them plot a solution to the certain dilemma that they are facing. Usually it's really just that they cannot read because of internet availability, signal problems, and gadget problems.
Yes. Okay, and another thing also is that we have to cultivate in our students the idea of resourcefulness. Sometimes, because if we give too much to them, they would
Yes.
end up just not being resourceful. So I think by giving them options, no, and what they can actually do, but letting them do it, not you. Okay, so we are actually telling them to be more resourceful. Okay, we have last question. Hello, Ma'am Erica. I have a question. I am very impressed with your talk, and that is why I would like to know your perspectives on how to handle negative comments when a person posted article in social media. And is it possible that literature may cause bashing for individuals?
If we stick to the general definition of literature, is any written text. It's actually any written text, in that easy, that simple. So any published or posted articles that we read, that we use as a discourse, that's probably under literature. But then when you talk about handling negative comments, you need to remember that not everyone gets to have the same slice as yours. So if ever you are offering them a cake, you should not expect that they will like it the way you do. So you must as well, like in the current situation, diba, there are many debates over the internet about a certain concept. It may be political or not, or it may just be a certain concept. So when you try to open up an idea, you need to be open-minded that people will really have a different perspective on that issue. It might be a perspective that you will never like. So for me, the best way is to probably acknowledge that they have a different stance as yours. But again, it doesn't mean that if it's different, you really have to accept it. You really just to be critical about it if uh, that's still in line with your principles, with what you believed in. And Mr. What's the second question? If literature is
May cause bashing, no? Or I think what they are meaning is may cause bad bad feeling, no, towards the one who posted.
right, when we say things that they consider that it's product of literature because we're opening up a discourse, it's a possibility that it may lead to those things if not guided properly by an educator or facilitator. That is why I would really love to get the idea of Ms. Chia a while ago, na we cultivate values in our class, so that when these kids try to reproduce concepts in social media, they will try to be conscious about whatever they will be speaking, if they are sensitive with what they are posting, if they are not culturally oppressing someone and stuff like that. Literature teaches us that we need to be emphatic teachers, and we need to cultivate emphatic learners as well, who are responsible with everything they post in social media.
Okay, so that's how it is. And also, again, before you start anything that has to do with education and social media, make sure that you give your students a heads up on what can actually happen, especially if your class decided to have all of these materials publicly available for everyone. So,
Yes.
such a way the students know what to expect and how they should react. Okay, so that's one. And then we will have our last Okay, we will have our last question for Miss Erica because I think we're doing overtime already. Okay, so this question, when we asked learner to post infographics, some of the outputs were just creative, but the content was not really good. We also have learners who had outputs that are not creative, but the content is really good. How we grade or evaluate learners' output in these kinds of circumstances, and how do you evaluate or measure effectiveness of the platforms that you are actually using in terms of student learning or engagement?
Okay, that's actually a good question. First, as we go back to the stages that were discussed a while ago, first you need to define your goals. What are you trying to check? For example, you might be letting them produce something and you are not sticking to your goals, the goals established beforehand. So for example, you take a look at your competency. If the goal is to let the students use figurative language, then in your rubric, that must take up the most part. Because if you do creativity and then you're not teaching them how to do infographics, it would be unfair on their end, diba? Because you're hitting the content. So again, you go back to your plan. What are your goals? Because before you plot an output, you need to really think of what are you trying to assess, what this output would yield what result. Because if it's infographic, and example, it's an English class, you want them to make an infographic about a story, for example, but then the students could complain, Miss, I don't know what infographic, what is an infographic, and you're giving me that it would be graded 50%. It takes up 50% of the grading system. So it would the blame would really be passed on to you. So again, first, establish what are your goals, what are your targets, what are you trying to assess? Because right then, everything will just fall into place. And in terms of creativity, Mango, take note, that's always subjective. Creativity, what if your version of creativity is like the visual one, but others could be creative in their own means. So you need to establish all those terms, and you need to be democratic as well as a teacher. That's the most important thing, especially that you are dealing with literature as a subject, and it teaches us to be democratic. So that's it.
Yes, exactly. I can actually remember one of my graduate students who work. She was like looking into poster making as a form of authentic assessment, and because she asked her students what should be the largest parts of the rubric aside from the content and the knowledge that are being used, the students would really actually ask the teacher to have effort. When it comes to creativity, the students always tell her that not all of us know how to draw, but there can be some rubrics on, say, for example, the drawing or the writing that can be given points. And the democratic idea of students knowing the rubrics and what are the competencies that they must show allows you to have a better grasp of what your students can do and allows the students to have a better grasp of your aims as a teacher. So that's how it should be. Okay, so we are really, really sorry if we cannot answer all, or Miss Erica cannot answer all of the questions because we are losing a lot of time. But don't worry, because maybe sometime later next year, Miss Erica will be back with us with new topic and new insights about literature and teaching literature, especially in high school programs. And aside from that, Miss Erica, thank you so much for being here with us. Miss Erica is also a researcher when it comes to social media and literature. So if you want to ask questions about those areas, you can actually ask us. No, if we can connect you to Miss Erica if that is. As for the case of the PowerPoint presentation of this particular webinar, we are sorry if we cannot give you the PowerPoint presentation of Miss Erica because that is actually creator content and it protects Miss Erica's work or creation. However, This particular video is very free for you to review at the UP Cebu TLRC YouTube channel. And before anything else, before we go, do not forget to evaluate. So the evaluation and processing of the e-certificates here in TLRC is actually automated. So please make sure to type in the correct spelling of your name, since this will reflect on your e-certificates. Also, please be mindful in typing your email address, because it is where you'll receive your certificates, and we suggest that you keep a copy of your response in the evaluation for you to verify if you have made mistakes. Always click send me a copy of my responses before submitting. Normally, it takes less than 3 minutes after submitting to receive your certificate, and should you not be able to receive it by 5 p.m. today, just send us a reply message with your concern to the confirmation email that we sent, msgalorio@up.edu.ph, and we will manually send the certificate on the next working day. Aside from that, our evaluation link, which leads you to your certificate, is open for only 15 minutes. So kindly make sure that you evaluate within 15 minutes. Miss Erica, may I ask you, how was your experience today?
Actually, Miss Jet, I was really when Sir Michael told me there are actually this number of registrants in your webinar, I was really okay. This is challenging. I was really nervous. I would not I would not deny that I was nervous like hours before the webinar, because I don't know if I will be delivering it right, if I could give out what I intend to give, and of course, the whole audience here are actually very warm. I'm reading their comments, I'm reading their chats, so it's actually nice. I think this is one of the fulfilling experiences that I got. This is my first public webinar, because most of the webinars that I give are like private lang for a certain organization, but this one is open for everyone. So this is the first, and definitely probably not the last, because I really enjoyed today's session.
Thank you so much, Miss Erica. And we hope, and we do really hope, that you will still accept our invitation soon, maybe next year, who knows? And we will have a rerun of your talk. This is very an enlightening talk, by the way. It's not only applicable for literature, but it's definitely applicable for other subjects as well. Thank you so much, Miss Erica. Michael Andrew will be sending you your certificate within the week, and also make sure that you also sign your materials. Okay, Miss Erica, photo op. Miss Erica, let's have photo op. Photo op opportunity. Okay,
yes, so I'm asking everyone with cameras to please turn them on para sa documentations natin for photo ops po.
Okay.
So be proud po for joining us, kasi you'll be part of our documentations that will be submitted to the UP system.
Yes, thank you so much for being with us. We are so happy to have you here, and we are full house again today, Noel and Michael. This means that Miss Erica's topic is really in line with the interest of our participants today. Beauty and brain, Miss Erica, Miss Universe na yan.
I'm flattered. I'm flattered. Thank you.
Of course, our participants and our avid fan base in the TLRC are also very much willing to learn, and they are all young at heart when it comes to learning. So technically, these are the best audience you could ever have, Miss Erica. Okay, so smile a bit. So smile lang po tayo for a while Michael is taking a picture of us all.
Yes, Miss. Medyo marami rin tayo. We have 12 slides po.
If this was a real seminar, this would have been massive. But the good thing is that because of webinars like this, we'll be able to meet people from Luzon, from Mindanao, from other parts of Visayas, and it makes us more culturally, in a way, we mingle now with each other more than before, and it's nice.
More inclusive, Miss. It's more inclusive right now. The beauty of webinars.
Yes. I hope we can still continue to have these kinds of webinars for everyone, not only for UP Cebu constituents, but also for everyone else. No, we are serving the country in a way. Yes. Yay.
Yeah, so thank you so much po for joining for our Auto Ops po. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Don't forget to evaluate and have a great day, everyone. See you in our next leg of webinars. Probably, we don't know, maybe on November, December, perhaps January. So just stay tuned and always be updated. Thank you so much. Miss Erica, we'll be seeing each other next week.
In a few days.
In a few days.
In a few days, Miss Jess.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Miss
Thank
Jess, Sir
you.
Michael, Sir Noel. I miss Noel, and to everyone.
Thank you, Miss.
Thank you so
Miss
much.
Erica.
Thank you. Michael and Noel, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Miss.
Noel, I am using your computer. Your very nice computer over here.
Wala ang background, Miss.
The background is okay. Because the camera is nice. I like it so much. I like the camera. Do we have individuals from our YouTube channel?
Yes, Miss. Ako na pinalipasod.
Okay. So we'll just be waiting for them to come in. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you.
Miss, pareha po kayo ng schedule ni Miss Erica in reporting for the annual physical, Miss, right?
Yes. How'd you know?
Kasi
Yes, because we have a plan, Miss Jess.
We have a dark plan. We
okay.
definitely have a dark plan. No, it's just about research.
Kasi Miss Erica, I'll be catching you I'll be needing some of your signatures also.
Oh, so he's waiting for you. So
That's
we
why
better.
I'm looking for your schedule. So, kailan ba ito ba? Ayan. Okay. So, kasabay pala sila ni Miss Jera. Sige.
We need to come together
Yes.
at the campus so that he can ask for your signature. Autograph. Did you know, Miss Erica, we have so many participants. Some are coming from Mindanao State University, some in Ligan, some in Tacloban, some are from NCR. So many.
Yes, Miss. We have also additional 60 plus participants watching from our YouTube live.
Wow, this is really a full house today.
Oo, kasi hindi na kasi sila makapasok sa Zoom kasi 300 lang. Kaya
Yes.
that's our live streaming. Yun ang use ng live streaming natin.
Yes. But you know what? There's also an advantage na 300 lang. Kasi if you have the webinar, which is 1,000, if I'm not mistaken, the participants cannot really like chat directly and tell you about their thoughts directly. So for those participants who are able to come in, seats 300, they can actually chat, no? They can actually like give their thoughts directly. And like when you have just a webinar style in which the participants will just listen. So I think it's good. And also very thankful ako sa YouTube live natin ng mga participants because even if they weren't able to come in, they really stayed, no, in YouTube and watched. And that's how powerful learning is for everyone. Okay. Thank you, Miss Erica. You're helping me to love again literature. Okay.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good koan. That's an uplifting comment, Miss J.
Sa literature ba talaga na in love?
Baka kay Miss Erica, Miss Universe na yan. Okay, shout out to Nueva Ecija University of Science and Technology. Hello po dyan, Sir Dars. Okay. Again, shout out to our HEIs coming in this afternoon. Okay, greetings from Mindanao State University, Iligan. Thank you so much for being here with us. We're so happy to have all of you here with us. Congratulations, Miss Erica, for an engaging talk, sabi nila.
you, Ms. Je. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Miss. Sir Aho also had the same. he also was with us, no, for research. Okay, shout out to Don Honorio Ventura State University, Bacoor, Pampanga. So we have participants from Bacoor as well. Kumusta po kayo dyan? Before Miss Eric,